Okay, Americans are leaving large urban cities for rural areas and smaller towns, as this article I've pulled up from The Hill is talking about. Americans leave large cities for suburban areas and rural towns. With the large increase in the number of Americans working from home and indicators that a large portion of the shift will be permanent, it's easy to see why people who now have the option to live anywhere will choose not to live in highly expensive cities and move to more affordable places where they could get a larger amount of housing for the same amount of money. It just makes sense that's going to be happening. And then you have the increase in crime and the problems with the virus, and there's going to be a huge impotence for Americans to move in that direction, and it shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. Now, there are benefits to living in an urban area or metropolitan region over living in a completely rural area in the middle of nowhere, in that you get better services like, say, you can more effectively order in from restaurants or grocery stores, and in a more serious note, you have access to sewer systems that you wouldn't in a rural area, and maybe even water systems depending on how remote the region is. And there are other benefits too. But at the same time, you could live in the outskirts of a smaller metropolitan region, like, say, Allentown or Memphis, instead of having to live in a highly expensive metropolitan area like San Francisco, LA, or New York, where even the suburban parts are still outrageously expensive. So, again, in a lot of these big metropolitan areas, even the suburban sections are still really ridiculously expensive, and you could have a much more affordable location to live if you move to a smaller, more low-cost metropolitan area that's not as highly expensive in maybe the South or West, like maybe Nashville or perhaps Raleigh. So, again, you can move to a smaller metropolitan area that's much more affordable and still have most of the benefits of living in a metropolitan area. And have much more space and much more lower living expenses than living in a highly expensive metropolitan region like New York, LA, or San Francisco, where even the suburbs are outrageously expensive. So let's read the article. A combination of the coronavirus pandemic, economic uncertainty, and social unrest is prompting waves of Americans to move from large cities and permanently locate to more sparsely populated areas. The trend has been accelerated by technology and shifting attitudes to make it easier than ever to work remotely. Yes, that's exactly what I was talking about, and that's the main shift that's fueling these changes and making these movements possible in the way they weren't before. Residents of all ages and incomes are moving in record numbers to suburban areas and small towns. A perfect storm of factors makes the decision to leave major cities like New York very obvious. The dense nature of urban area living and the lack of proper local government planning led to coronavirus spreading 5 times faster in New York than the rest of the country. The city now resembles a ghost town in many areas after thousands of its wealthy middle-class residents fled early in the pandemic. Many are moving to small towns north of the 5 boroughs. 4 upstate counties have seen an incredible surge in real estate demand, while the rest of New York market is catering. In Ulster County, the number of homes under contract nearly doubled the 2016 figures. It saw steady sales in March and April, while the overall New York market fell by nearly 30%. Is that sales figures or prices? Because those two are very different things, and I'm just curious, which is which? Some people are staying at their vacation homes, but the data suggests there are many permanent moves in the works. So a lot of these people who are permanently leaving the city or even the entire metro area are not going to move to upstate New York. They're going to entirely leave the state. And the people leaving are disproportionately going to be higher income people that pay an outright majority of the taxes. So if these people do permanently leave the state, then New York's tax base is going to be hammered. And the lower tax base is going to lead to a decline in services that's going to further decline the quality of life and lead to a further exodus from the metro area, or at least the city, in an accelerating downward spiral. An estimated 250,000 New York residents will move upstate for good, while another 2 million could permanently move out of the state. Yeah, those are going to be disproportionately the higher income people that pay an outright majority of the taxes, so it seems like New York's state's tax base is going to be completely hammered. And they already had huge shortfalls in funding the MTA and the New York Housing Authority already, so New York is going to be facing huge fiscal problems if even a fraction of these move-outs actually do happen. More than 16,000 New York residents have already relocated to suburban Connecticut. The preliminary figures show New York is also losing citizens to rural New England and Florida in significant numbers. Similar trends are happening in other large urban areas. There is a political element within the domestic migration at play across the nation, but what is more telling is the level of movement to suburban areas and rural towns. Over 40% of urbanites have browsed online for real estate, more than twice the level of people who live in the country. Redfin reports that the more than a quarter of searches on its website are by urbanites in Seattle, San Francisco, and DC, searching for homes across less populated places, while real estate sales are down in San Francisco, where prices are falling by more than 50%. Really, prices in San Francisco have fallen by outright 50%. Demand in its suburbs has been soaring, with prices rising by almost 10%. Again, the suburbs in these big metropolitan regions are also outrageously expensive. So I don't know why why people are so eager to move to those places when they can move to a completely different metropolitan region that's completely affordable, or more rural areas on the outskirts of small metropolitan regions. There has been a sharp uptick in interest in moving out to Montana, with the majority of new inquiries coming from California. Real estate sales in Montana are 10% higher than at this time last year. Rural Colorado, Oregon, and Maine have seen similar upticks in property sales. Vermont is going through a renaissance in real estate, with an agent there remarking that people are buying houses without even seeing them. Some of the biggest changes are less obvious, yet even the hidden trends support the idea that cities are emptying out. In March and April, over 2 million young people moved back in with their parents or grandparents. If the allure of cities declines further due to the rise of diseases, a sputtering economy, and the future of telework, the flight to suburban and rural safety will continue well after the coronavirus vaccine hits the market. Social unrest and urban crime rate spikes also raise the possibility of a sharp increase in exits from large cities. A breakdown in order could further downsize cities rebuilt with law and order approaches. Urban trends over the last 50 years are being revised. Instead of similar towns and rural areas facing sharp declines, large metropolitan areas may soon be places bullying citizens. So that's it for the article. Essentially, it's just more on how the shift to more work from home, an increase in that, is going to lead to a huge exodus from large urban areas and metropolitan regions to more rural regions and smaller cities and towns. And how that's going to lead to a sharp decline in tax revenue that's going to cause a decline in services and a downward spiral for these big cities. And essentially, if people now have the option to live anywhere, why would they choose to live in these outrageously expensive, big urban and metropolitan areas if they could move to much more affordable, smaller metropolitan regions and rural areas and get a much better quality housing for the same amount of money and enjoy a better quality of life overall. And if they live to the outskirts of smaller metropolitan regions, they can still enjoy a lot of the benefits afforded by living in outright urban and metropolitan regions, like better services like sewer systems and better access to restaurants and other ordering services and things like that. So if you like this video, please subscribe and contribute to my Subscribe Star. Like this video. Leave your thoughts in the comments section. Share this video with anyone you think might be interested. And go to my channel page for more other videos. Thank you, and see you.